Hey y'all, it's Tequila Cheatham McCrae from the Grapevine Sway LLC. Happy National Poetry Month. It's been a long time coming, and I should have been posting throughout the month, but I used this moment, I saved this moment in particular to just post once this month, and hopefully you get something out of it, and hopefully you learn a little bit about me and a little bit about you. First of all, I just want to have a disclaimer. If you hear any noise in the background, that's a natural soundtrack of children outside of my building. I just want to point that out. There's nothing like natural sounds, right? There is nothing like a natural soundtrack. Gotta love it. The kids are outside enjoying the weather, so I can't blame them. But anyways, so I was thinking this month and reflecting on some things and writing a little bit, and I didn't post anything because it dawned on me that I almost died. And let me give me a second to try to explain this without crying my eyeballs out. So I was generally a quiet girl who kept to herself and made good grades throughout school. You may have caught me laughing or something at somebody's joke, or snickering at the class clowns in the back room, but I was never one of those people who held the conversation because I just didn't have a lot to say. I observed a lot, right? And so I didn't talk a lot until high school, right? I didn't talk a lot. And a lot was going on with me that no one knew about. And I say I almost died because I literally had a nervous breakdown. And had it not been for poetry, I would not be here today. Literally, I would not be here today. So let me just explain explain the best way that I can, okay? Bear with me. So in high school, I signed myself up for Junior Reserves Officer Training Corps, which is JROTC. It's a military training type of class. I became a commander immediately because my sergeants recognized some leadership skills that I had and didn't want to wait. So they put me in a leadership position that I wasn't ready for. Shy girl like me, not ready to talk at all, and, lead people. That requires talking. And so I wasn't ready for that. But I'm glad I challenged myself to do it because it made me step out of my comfort zone. Okay. So being the introvert that I was back in the day, being a commander came easy to me. Sorry, this is a real live conversation, intimate conversation that we're having. My son just literally, yeah, just came in on me with his friends. So back to what I was saying. Spitting out commands, throwing commands out there became easy to me because it was scripted, right? It didn't require much work. I could just recite words that I had studied. I could recite what I knew, but it didn't allow me or require me to be vulnerable, which is something that was foreign to me. One day I literally felt like I was dying inside, and I had kept so much bottled up over the years about things I had seen growing up, stuff that had been said to me from the closest of relatives, and really just my own pressures of dealing with development and peer pressure and all of that stuff. Which peer pressure was never really a big thing for me anyway, but growth in general as a teenager was really hard, of course. It became too much, to say the least. And one day, a few of my JROTC cadets walked home with me. At that time, I was living with my aunt. Um, they walked home with me and was hanging in my room at the time, and I just started crying out of nowhere. Someone like me who's not an emotional person, who's very stoic in nature, I just started crying. And I literally had to run out of the house because I didn't want them to see me bawling tears. And I just remembered the guy who I was so called dating at the time was running behind me. And when I walked out and couldn't respond back or couldn't do anything else but cry, I just broke down. I literally broke down, like ugly cry. And it was only for like maybe a split second, a couple of minutes. But at that time, I couldn't respond any other way. I couldn't tell him exactly how I felt because at that time I was always told that family life is private. You don't share your intimate feelings. You don't share anything, right? Other than the superficial stuff. And so since I was 7, I was writing in a journal. I had always kept a journal. But in 8th grade, I was really, I became interested in reading Dr. Maya Angelou's poems. My mother was an avid. She was very. But how can I put it? She always told my teachers to give me more homework than everyone else. She made me read a lot, which turned out to be a good thing. Here I am. But I read some of her work, Dr. Angelou's work, and I really didn't understand everything she wrote, but the words that I did understand, I was hugging on to them. I was trying to identify with them, trying to find a place that resonated with me, that I resonated with. And I can remember holding on and embracing some of her words like I had found a long lost brother or it was just like her words were like fresh air that were bites of peppermint patties blowed on an ice cube. If I could just describe, I don't know, just I just felt that I had hope reading her works, even the sad poems. They made me feel, and that was something that I was not used to. They made me vulnerable, which was odd because I had hid my feelings often and cried when I was alone. I never showed anyone my emotions. And before you knew it, I started writing, my own poetry about love, about pain, about life, about what I was seeing, about sex, what I wanted to experience, abandonment. Just for the first time, I was able to express and release without saying a lot. Poetry allowed me to condense my feelings enough to where if someone read it by accident, just all of a sudden just found my journal, surprise, then they would understand just by reading my poetry. I didn't have to say too many words. I didn't have to explain myself. My poems spoke exactly how I felt. And I could say honestly, without being able to express on paper, without poetry allowing me the vehicle to express my thoughts, to express my feelings, to express what I was seeing at those times, I would literally, I think I would have experienced a series of ongoing panic attacks. And sometimes I did, and nobody knew about it. Being the oldest child, being the oldest cousin, being the oldest, being the one that saw everything, I would have experienced a series of ongoing panic attacks. And sometimes, at some point, I contemplated taking my own life for a split second, just for a split second. But I realized that I was and am valuable in my own right. My mother ended up reading that that journal one day, and it was like my world had changed. But I can honestly say that for people who don't enjoy poetry or who feel like it's too much or feel like, oh, it's boring or how does this relate to me? If you simply took the time to dissect and get out of your own mind and maybe even try writing your own poetry in your own time, you will realize that it's more than just about words. It's emotion, it's feeling, it's your five senses, it's everything embodied in one. And if I had to summarize what poetry means to me, I would say it is poetry is a silent argument waiting to be